The Reconquista Initiative presents A Whole is a Whole. Let me tell you a simple truth that could, at least in part, help to save Western civilization. Namely that, as the crude saying goes, a whole is indeed a whole. So now that I have your attention, let me explain what I mean by this rather vulgar idea. More importantly, let me explain why, for the Christian and the proponent of Western civilization, actually living out this idea is indeed one of the most important actions that you can take when it comes to your marriage. And since your marriage, and how you treat it, is actually a key component of Western civilization, then, by extension, living out this idea does indeed have a clear effect on Western civilization itself. In essence, for the proponent of traditional Western civilization, this idea, rather than being a sexualized concept implying a willingness to indulge in sexual immorality, is instead an idea that is key to maintaining the very marital bonds that Christians and traditionalists are called to maintain. Indeed, for what this idea signifies, and the truth that it expresses, is that if you, as a man, are in a relatively satisfied sexual and marital relationship, then you should realize that there is no benefit to seeking sexual satisfaction elsewhere at the cost of your marriage and family and the civilizational and moral decline that follows from a society full of promiscuous divorcees. Thus, what a whole is meant to rather shockingly convey to the traditionalist man is that when it comes to women, the grass is not necessarily greener on the other side of the fence, and that if what you have in your marriage is good, then it behooves you not to toss it away for another version of the very same thing, given the drawbacks that doing so entails. Now note that I am not saying that a proponent of Western civilization, if he finds himself in a sexual relationship that is completely unsatisfying, should simply resign himself to his fate and not take any serious action to remedy that situation. For in such circumstances, drastic action may be needed and would be warranted. Rather, what I am saying is that if your sexual relationship is solid, and if the pleasure that you receive from that relationship keeps you well satisfied, then if you are indeed a family man or a man on whom the woman you are with depends, then it is simply not worth trying to trade up for something which will ultimately turn out to be pretty much the same thing that you already have. After all, consider the downsides to doing so. First, in the situation that I described above, trading up is simply not worth the risk. Not only the risk that what you might be trading up for could be worse than what you already have, but also all the associated financial, familial, legal, and other risks that come from dropping one woman to seek out a, quote, better one. Second, Christians, traditionalists, and proponents of Western civilization must remember that we are not just fucking animals, literally, but that we are called to greater and more important things. Sexual appetites and drives, while important and in need of fulfillment, and while also being perfectly moral to fulfill in the right context, are nevertheless but one part of a man's life, and they are a lower part of it. After all, men are the builders of civilizations, the thinkers of philosophies, the writers of songs and great tales, the explorers of the unknown, the architects of cathedrals, and the winners of awesome and terrible wars. And so, for a man to neglect the great things in life simply so that he can rut like a dog is for a man to become a dog. And that is no way for the proponent of Western civilization to be. Third, there is little doubt that God would frown upon any man who trades up one woman for another for little more than a chance to slightly increase his own sexual pleasure. Indeed, I do not think it hard to imagine that the creator of this world might be a little less than pleased at a man who takes an action that both harms his children and also supports and furthers the cultural and moral rot in our society simply to achieve a slightly better orgasm. At the same time, never forget that we are not called in this life to be happy, but to do good and to do our duty. God did not, after all, create Teletubby babies. He created men. And so it would be a grave failure of duty to support those things which weaken Western civilization simply for one's self-gratification. And so the long and short of it is this. For the Christian, the traditionalist, and the proponent of Western civilization, the truism that a whole is a whole teaches us that if we are ever tempted to leave a good marital relationship for the vague belief that the next one will be better, we should not do so. On multiple levels, it simply is not worth it. And when the temptation does strike, as it inevitably will, just remind yourself that the next woman is not always better, and that you are called to much greater things than just seeking out the next wet hole. And now if we could get Western women to realize the same thing about men, then a good number of our current cultural problems would slowly start to resolve themselves. Please subscribe to this channel, and if you wish, please support it either through PayPal at reconquistainitiative.com or through Patreon at patreon.com/Reconquista Initiative. Thank you.